Afternoon. Is that any better? Yeah. Now I can hear myself. What a beautiful afternoon. I want to welcome each and every one of you to our closing ceremony this afternoon, and this now officially both concludes and most importantly memorializes these past 5 days here in Winchester, Indiana. My name is Art Miller. I'm Director of Program Development and Veteran Services for ViaQuest. And as an Army vet from the 70s, I am so deeply honored to have been asked to facilitate this closing ceremony on this amazing day. And I thank you, Mike and Connie, for that privilege. You know, as we reflect together on the past week, many of you will remember the time that the American Veterans Traveling Tribute was first escorted from 27, escorted by an estimated 200 motorcycles with flags and extending honor, all the way up to this concluding ceremony where we'll be sending the traveling tribute on to its next destination. I'm sure you will agree that it's been mission accomplished since Wednesday through to today. In that light, to those of you who reside in this wonderful community, we thank you so much for your hospitality, for your service, and all of those of you who work so diligently and passionately to make this possible. We thank you for doing whatever it took to bring this dream to reality. And that's exactly what you did. And you know, there's one individual that I'd also like to mention this afternoon. His name is Robert Houston. Robert, where are you? Robert Houston's from Sydney, Ohio. And Robert is the gentleman who drives the American Veterans Traveling Tribute across the country from town to town, transporting the wall and overseeing its installations to at least 25 events per year. Indeed, this gentleman gives his life in service, and we thank you, Robert. So on this closing day, on this beautiful day, we will be especially acknowledging and honoring our fallen heroes who made the ultimate sacrifice in their service. And we will also be acknowledging and honoring all veterans of every age and stage, those here today and those who are with us in spirit. And we will also be acknowledging and honoring those who are currently serving in our armed services, as well as those just beginning their military service. And you will see portions of this ceremony devoted to each of those specific groups. So, ladies and gentlemen, with this in mind and in that perspective, I would now like to officially begin this ceremony by asking you to join me in a moment of silence in tribute to all who have served and are serving, past and present, and to their families and loved ones near and far. Thank you. This afternoon's color guard is comprised of some very inspiring students in later on, the color guard will be joined by the entire drill team. Collectively, they are the Paint Valley Cadet Corps drill team from Bainbridge, Ohio. They're under the direction of their military service instructor, Master Sergeant John Wilson. And members of the drill team include 13 students of distinction. They include Drill Team Commander Cadet Mark Groves and Cadets Valley Malcolm, Haley Walls, Corey Wilson, Dawson Markham, Jacob Ott, Elijah Kreck, Brennan Loomis, Joseph Hall, Austin Woods, Chance Montgomery, Joshua Watson, and their drill team bugler, Casey McAllister. These young men and women have made a very significant commitment to service. They devote untold hours to their mission, and they do so because they feel it's all about the honor of serving others. Joining in the processional is Mr. Zach Osmond. Zach is Assistant Director of Veteran Services for ViaQuest. Zach is a veteran, having served as an Air Force Raven, where he was responsible for flyaway security for the C-17s, and throughout his career, Zach served in over 100 countries, and today he serves veterans who are either unemployed or underemployed, as well as veterans who are experiencing emotional, behavioral, and/or physical disabilities. And joining Zach is Chaplain Joshua Stone. Throughout his military career, Josh has provided spiritual leadership, guidance, and support for the many soldiers he served with, both stateside and during his deployment in Afghanistan. Currently, Josh is the chaplain for the 437th Military Police Battalion out of Rickenbacker. And in his civilian life, Josh is chaplain for ViaQuest Hospice, which serves veterans and military families facing life-limiting illness. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're able, please now rise for our processional.
Present. Park.
Would you please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Forward. Park. Colors. Colors turn. Park.
for the invocation. Abba Father, we thank you so much for this day, for the beauty of it, for the great weather, and we thank you for the opportunity and the great honor that it has been to have been here this week and to have been able to honor our veterans. We thank you so much for these true American heroes. We thank you for those who gave their lives in order to defend our country, to defend our values. We thank you as well for those who served and for those who came back and, as we mentioned before, still continue to deal with many challenges associated with that time. We thank you as well for their families and their loved ones who went through these journeys with them as well, and who have many of their own challenges to face as a result. Again, we thank you so much for these great American heroes and their families. We pray for your continual blessing to be upon them as they continue to live their lives and fulfill their journey here. And we pray as well for those who will continue to serve and who will continue to rise up after us and defend our country. May your blessing, may your hand of blessing be upon the rest of this time as we honor those whom we cherish so dearly. Amen.
Thank you, cadets. Thank you, Chaplain. Please be seated. Members of the Honor Guard and drill team, it's a privilege to have you here. And ladies and gentlemen, you will be experiencing this amazing group here shortly as they present for us and for the honor of this event. You know, a memorial of this magnitude would simply not have been possible without Mike and Connie Kennedy. They've been leading the troops from start to finish, and their dream of bringing the American Veterans Traveling Tribute to Winchester began on October 1st of 2014, and that's when their friend Bridget Swab Ashley reminded Connie and Mike that 2015 would mark the 40th anniversary of the end of the Vietnam War, specifically April 30th, 2015. Well, as they say, the rest is history. For that dream did become reality, and a great many visitors have experienced this memorial during the past 5 days. And although we will be acknowledging Mike and Connie and Bridget later in the ceremony, it's now my pleasure to invite Mr. Mike Kennedy to the podium.
There are a lot of people that need to be thanked, and all this wouldn't have come about if one day about 12 years ago I went in to see my veteran service officer to see what kind of benefits I could get, and I think I woke him up and I said, well, when you retire, I want your job. Well, open mouth, insert foot, here I am. And for the past 8 years, it's been my honor and privilege to support the American veterans here in Randolph County and the surrounding counties, veterans who need my assistance. About 3.5, 4 years ago, I was sitting in my office and got slapped upside the back of the head. My dad wasn't standing there, so I knew it had to be somebody else, a greater divine intervention, whatever you want to call it. That's when it hit me that I needed to do something more than what I had been doing, and I needed to open a place where I could help veterans with drug, alcohol, PTSD, and homeless issues and help them get back on their feet. Last year on March the 21st, we opened up the Journey Home here in Winchester, and since then we've helped about 30 veterans have come through the facility. Some of them have made it all the way through. Some of them have decided to leave early. But all in all, I could say that we've been pretty successful. We have had veterans that work out at Marjoon. We got veterans that work at Applegate Steel. We have veterans who work for Matt Netherly down in Modoc. And we have one that works at KitchenAid. We're using the Voc rehab system to help these veterans get back on their feet. We got one that's going to Ivy Tech through the Voc rehab system. We have placed 2 of them in housing over in Muncie through the Voc rehab, or through the HUD-VASH program, which is all these are acronyms that mean nothing to you, but it's all government programs. But what you got to understand, as of today, we are still not getting any state, federal, or VA funding to help us run the Journey Home. It's been through the people of Randolph County, the surrounding counties, and the veteran service organizations, and the other events like this that we've put on in the past that have kept the doors of the Journey Home open. So collectively, you need to give yourself a round of applause for what you have done for the veterans that are now serving our country. Give yourself a hand of. But for this event, like Art said, it wouldn't have come to Ben if it hadn't have been for Bridget coming forward and saying we need to do something. So we decided that we would have a parade. We went to the mayor of this fine city and we showed him what our itinerary was, and he signed off on it that day. He signed off on the parade. He didn't know anything about all this. Neither did we. Because on Monday when we went back in the office, Connie says, well, what else can we do? So we made one phone call to the American Traveling Tribute Wall, and they said that date's available. And I thought to myself, how could that date be available? It's the 40th anniversary. This is a big event. Divine intervention. We got the wall. So over the last 6 months or so, we've had committees and organizations and a multitude of people helping us out. And I'd like to just recognize a few of them. Dwight Albright, a member of the city police force, he was a big help in organizing the escort and the law enforcement and the tribute that came along there. Jim Nunez and the WCCPC. Without Jim, the escort and getting it lined up would have been a nightmare. And that parade yesterday, Jim stepped up, and that was the most magnificent parade I ever seen without marching bands in my life. I'd like to thank Bill Yost for all the things that he helped us out with. The draping the flag across Main Street was one of the most beautiful things I ever seen. I'd like to thank Ted Martin. He arranged for the security of the 24-hour security over the past 4 or 5 days. Without Ted stepping up and completing that task, I would have had to been out here, and there ain't enough for me to go around. I'd like to thank Jim Wacker for bringing up his Museum of Soldiers stuff there in the tent. That was an added addition, and all the other military vehicles and stuff that we had. I would like to also thank Mike Thorne, who brought Jim Wacker to us and helped out in so many other ways, contacting people here and there and everywhere. I'd like to thank Kathy Bond. She's on the Parks Department. Without her, some of the things that went on would have just, she was behind the scenes doing things that some people wouldn't believe she could have got done. I'd like to thank Chris Garrett for organizing the bands that we had last night. If you didn't get a chance to hear them, it was awesome. I'd like to thank Becca Staten. She was the one who helped organize and get things going down at the Wesleyan Church so that we could have the wall meet us there, and the motorcycles and all that. She stepped up the plate and did a fine job. I'd like to thank all the people that did pull security. It was cold that first night. If you don't remember, it was cold. And we didn't have a heater until late in the morning, so thank them for doing that. The women and young men that worked the information booth, it's just amazing that they picked that up so quickly and put up with my computer crashing all the time, so they did a splendid job. And I'd like to thank Chris Hernandez. He's been here for every time we've had an event. He's brought this sound system and speaker system to us, set it up, take it down, hasn't asked for any help, but he's done it so much he doesn't need the help. But and if I've forgotten anybody, forgive me, the list is long. The volunteers have been great. And I'd also like to thank the support of the citizens of Winchester and Randolph County for coming out and taking advantage of this. But it's not just been people from Winchester and Randolph County. The other night at 11:30 at night when I was out here, there was a lady from northern Michigan, and I asked her how far up in northern Michigan she lived. She said if she took one more step, she'd be in Canada. But this is the closest the wall had ever been to her, and she wanted to come and see it. There are people here from Tennessee. There's people here from Kentucky. My sister's here from Pennsylvania. Thank you. And mostly, again, I want to thank Bridget, for without her idea of the parade, this wouldn't have happened. And I would like to thank my wife, Connie Kennedy. Her tireless efforts and long nights and putting up with me are amazing. So she does deserve a hand. But what we all got to understand is none of this would be possible and none of it would be necessary if it wasn't for the names of the 58,000 plus men that are on the back there on that wall. The sacrifice they made so we can enjoy our freedoms today can never be compensated for. Just remember them in your prayers, remember their families, and find a vet, shake his hand. You know a vet that's recently come home, welcome him home. If you know a Vietnam veteran who's too stubborn to go in and see his veteran service officer, grab him by the hand, bring him to see us. They have rights, they have funds and things that are out there, and I'll do my best to make sure they get it. Agent Orange is something that affects every one of these veterans that put boots on the ground in Vietnam. And unfortunately, our military and our government doesn't recognize those Blue Water Navy guys that were exposed to it and should be compensated the same way. I know I sound like I'm grandstanding, but that's just my opinion. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Art here. And again, thank you very much for your support.
Mike, thank you. There are 4 other gentlemen that I would like to acknowledge this afternoon. You'll see 3 of these from a distance as they fly overhead in vintage World War II airplanes. The 4th gentleman is their ground coordinator, and he's here at the wall cueing them throughout their mission. Together, we will soon be experiencing what's referred to as the Missing Man formation. It's in honor of America's fallen heroes. The first plane you'll see is a 1940 Stinson 10 aircraft. The paint job is in the colors of the Civil Air Patrol that used to fly this type of plane off the east and west coasts looking for German U-boats. When they spotted one, the pilot would radio the position to a destroyer who would then go out and sink it. These planes also carried a small 100-pound bomb between the landing gear so the pilots could actually buzz the U-boat that they spotted in an attempt to hit it themselves. This plane will be flown by Mr. Jim Baldwin, age 83, who was an aircraft mechanic during the Korean War. The second plane is the Stinson L-5 aircraft. This aircraft was designed solely for the military, World War II, and it was never converted to civilian use like so many other small planes during and after the World War II. The L designates the aircraft as a liaison plane. It was used to fly senior ranking military officers. It was used in air recon missions. It was used in forward air spotting. and it was even used in medical evacuations. And this plane is being flown by a dear personal friend of mine, Mr. Kip Kelsey, retired captain with Continental Airlines. The third plane is the 1948 Stinson 108. This is the plane that will peel away this afternoon, leaving the other two planes in tight formation. This departing aircraft signifies the lost airman, the fallen hero. Traditionally, when an airman goes down, or when the life of any military service man or woman is lost, it's said that he's gone west. Thus, the plane that you'll see will peel off to the west, creating the missing man formation. The pilot of this aircraft is beautifully named Mr. Speedy Gonzalez. And he was with the Airborne Division, saw combat during the Vietnam War. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in expressing our appreciation to the Historical Aircraft Squadron of Ohio, to their groundkeeper behind me, their ground coordinator behind me, Ron Manuel, and to the three squadron pilots I just named, Jim Baldwin, Kip Kelsey, and Speedy Gonzalez. Thank you, gentlemen, for your service. My friends, it's now my pleasure to introduce Master Sergeant John Wilson of the Paint Valley Cadet Corps Drill Team. This team will perform with the replica M1 rifle weighing in at 8 pounds. And in order to perfect their precision drill, they practice daily at 6:30 in the morning and again at 10:30 in the morning. This drill team usually competes in 2 to 4 meets per year, and since their inception, they have secured 9 first-place finishes. In fact, the team has become so widely renowned that they have actually forfeited competitions this year in order to meet the ever-increasing number of requests for public appearances, such as the events of this weekend. As you will now see, their close order drill is dangerous, and it requires teamwork and unwavering mutual trust. Without question, you will be both proud and impressed with this group of outstanding young men and women. And if you're seated and able, please face the wall to experience the Paint Valley Cadet Corps Drill Team.
Stand by. Drill team. Attention. Hunt. Ladies, gentlemen, and veterans of the Armed Forces, Paint Valley Cadet Corps, appreciate your services and hope you enjoy the show. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our performance.
Thank you, Paint Valley Cadets. Thank you to Master Sergeant Wilson for your leadership and instruction of these great young men and women. Incidentally, we will experience this drill team again at the conclusion of our ceremony as they dismiss us in the tradition of the firing of the 3 volleys, then taps. One of the greatest opportunities of the week is now upon us. It's our opportunity to recognize all veterans in our midst this afternoon and to facilitate this part of our ceremony. It's my pleasure to bring both Josh Stone and Zach Osmond to the podium. Gentlemen.
Good afternoon, everyone. Well, I too would like to thank the Kennedys and the Journey Home for organizing and bringing the AVTT wall to Winchester, Indiana. It's truly an honor for Josh and me to be up here, face to face with so many veterans and their families. As Art mentioned, Josh and I are both veterans ourselves. So acknowledging the men and women who served both with us and before us is a real privilege. And as a way of commemorating this occasion, we would like to present every veteran here today with a small token of our appreciation. Small in size, that is, but very strong in significance. As you know, when American flags become tattered or torn, they are customarily donated to organizations like the VFW, where they are appropriately either buried according to protocol. Well, a decade ago, 4 women from Florida decided that before our flags were permanently retired, they would cut out the embroidered stars from each flag, then place each star in a small plastic baggie and enclose a wallet-side card that reads as the following: I am part of the American flag that has flown over a home in the U.S. I can no longer fly. The sun, wind, has caused me to be tattered and torn. Please carry me as a reminder that you are not forgotten. These 4 ladies then emailed each star and card to military men and women stationed in Iraq and Afghanistan. And their program soon became known as the Star Project. Of course, the remainder of each tattered and torn flag was then retired, according to etiquette. And by 2005, the program had become national in scope. And today, we know it as Stars for Troops. And today, Josh and I are proud to present each veteran with a star that has been cut out from the American flag that ViaQuest received from the VFW. And I think it's important to note that the individuals we serve in our day service programs are those with emotional, behavior, physical, and developmental disabilities. For the past 2 months, 30 of these day program participants have cut over 500 embroidered stars because they wanted each veteran here today to have one. And they ask us to be sure to say thank you to each one of you who receives the stars. Would the Paint Valley Drill Team cadets and the volunteers from Winchester Honor Society please join Josh and me in front of the stage. Veterans, our volunteer students will now be walking amongst you with the stars. Please raise your hands as one of the students is near you so he can honor you at this time. And so our students can express our collective gratitude. fallen heroes and their families who we've honored this week. Josh, Art, and I, thank you so much for your service and sacrifice. Thank you.
There's one group that I would appropriately like us to pay tribute to today. That's the younger men and women who are now or will soon begin their military service. God bless them all as we together thank all new inductees for their upcoming service. And there's no question in my mind that our freedoms are secure, the likes of the cadets that we just met. I'd like to close by concluding a few very personal thoughts, sharing them with you. And I'd like for you to help me out for a minute. I want to take you back to the mid-1800s for a moment. And I'd ask you to visualize the scenario, put yourself in the picture that I'm now going to paint. It's just after midnight. A slender nurse, using a small lantern to light her way. She's slowly walking down long, dark corridors. In fact, 4 miles of long, dark corridors. Hallways that are lined with wounded British soldiers laying on thin beds of straw. "We must do better than this," whispered that nurse. And she whispered it into the silence of these old Turkish army barracks that had been converted into a hospital for the British soldiers. The nurse leaned down beside a young soldier wounded. She peeled away a slice of orange and gently lifted the gentleman's head up, squeezed the juice into his mouth. His eyes opened. "Thank you," he muttered. The nurse smiled warmly and moved on to the next. And it was in the wee hours of the morning on that same day when that same nurse finally completed her nightly rounds through that 4-mile maze I just described of this so-called hospital. "We must do better than this," she scribbled into her journal before laying down, hoping to catch just 2 or 3 hours of sleep before starting it all over again in the morning. You see, on March 28, 1854, 161 years ago, Great Britain entered a war against Russia that would forever be known as the war that made Britain great. But that same war also gave us the lady with the lamp, Nurse Florence Nightingale, right? As you might know or might not know, Florence was born into a very affluent British family who belonged to the most elite social circles. But from her very early age, it was evident that Florence Nightingale was destined for something far greater than financial wealth. In fact, Florence spent her very early childhood days ministering to the ill and to the poor people in her village, all the while, imagine this, all the while being shunned by her upper-class family and friends. But that didn't matter to young Florence, and at the age of 17, Florence said she heard God calling to her to a greater purpose, and in 1837, Florence Nightingale began her formal training to become a nurse. And throughout her training, Florence remained excited, driven, and determined to change the world of healthcare, but most importantly, to also change the way soldiers were viewed and treated throughout her country and ours. but also throughout her training, young Florence continued to be rejected by her parents, who deeply contested her choice of careers. After all, no child of theirs would be a working girl, and worse yet, a working girl in a profession that at that time was considered to be one of the lowest of the low, a nurse serving soldiers. But Nightingale's dreams became reality when Great Britain entered the Crimean War, and Florence immediately agreed to serve, and she quickly rounded up a band of 37 other nurses that she could find, and they all set sail for Turkey. And when these 38 nurses arrived at that makeshift hospital that I just described a few minutes ago, they witnessed conditions where soldiers were supposedly receiving their medical care. And that's when and where Florence Nightingale said for the very first time, we must do better than this. And the Lady with the Lamp was born. Florence Nightingale, my friends, could have easily settled for a life of luxury, having been born into a wealthy family. She didn't have to work a day in her life, and she could have been pampered by servants. But she chose to serve rather than be served. She chose to change the world in spite of the personal cost and sacrifice. She chose to do what's right in spite of her personal pain. She chose to be great by serving others. And I know that I could replace the name Florence Nightingale with the names of every single one of you gathered here today. Because like Florence, you made the decision to change lives through your service, either to our nation, or in your service to veterans, or to their families. You, like Florence, you see, chose to be great by serving others. Believing that she was on a mission from God, Florence could not be dissuaded under any circumstances. And she fought an entire system that was fighting her. And in so doing, she became an advocate for every soldier in every land. You see, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, back in those days, soldiers were also disrespected, just like the nurses were. But that didn't matter to Florence or the 37 other incredible nurses who broke their backs, scrubbing the floors, washing the walls, laundering the linens, caring for each and every soldier. But no matter how exhausted or sick they became, they never questioned their mission. Florence and her team were exactly where they needed to be. Yes, by day, Nurse Florence cared for the patient's physical needs. The Lady with the Lamp took on a different role each night. She became each soldier's confidant, friend, and counselor, assuming responsibility for their emotional well-being. Night after night, the only sound that could be heard in the hospital was the quiet footstep of Florence as she walked the long corridors, and as she grew closer and closer to each soldier, her silhouette would appear, and the light from her lamp would cross the face of each soldier, and suddenly the room was illuminated, but not from the small lamp. The room was illuminated with hope. You could see heads rise from each pillow as she talked with them about their future, about getting better. She talked about how their life had meaning and purpose. She taught them skills they could use in employment when they got home. Because of Florence, you see, these soldiers found value in living, and they found self-respect. And you know, whenever each one of you offer a veteran or an active duty military man or woman a word of thanks, or whenever you help a veteran run an errand or help them find a job, or simply buy them a meal, in any way that you support them, then I can guarantee you that that same light of hope is brushing someone's face, and that someone is receiving encouragement and inspiration from you. They're never going to tell you, but my friends, that's exactly what that wall has done for others this week. Well, in addition to the physical and emotional healing that Florence delivered, her team of 38 unclogged sewage systems improved the drinking water, and remarkably, these changes helped stop the spread of disease. And yet, beyond these physical improvements, Florence also changed the way people were thinking around the world. Soldiers were no longer looked down upon. Instead, they became respected as men and women of valor. And nurses were no longer considered insignificant or degrading. Instead, they were viewed as pioneers of healthcare. And all caregivers soon became referred to as angels of mercy. Florence Nightingale chose to be great, and this place is filled today and has been filled all week because of the path that she forged so many years ago. Florence Nightingale was indeed heroic, but you know, her story didn't end there. Her torch was simply passed on to each and every one of you here today, where we now advocate and serve with passion and love, where we are walking the corridors with our light shining on the face of others.
To the brave history, what they gave to you and me, heroes of America. From the mountains to the sea, for their lasting legacy, heroes of America. And I stand on the faith that rests upon God's grace, and raise the flag that lives for the free. What does it mean to me, sweet land of liberty, to fight for what is right and not give in? Let our freedom ring. I'll give everything to see her standing tall, America. To the unsung of today, and the price they must pay, heroes of America. And they tread where no one before, leaving hope forevermore. Heroes of America. And it pleases me to see there's a heart in my country beating strong for the red, white, and blue. What does it mean to me, sweet land of liberty, to fight for what is right and not give in, to let our freedom ring? I'll give everything to see her standing tall, America. Stand tall, strong as you can be. Stand up, America, so the world may see. May see.
So in the words of the song you just heard, to let our freedom ring, you've given everything to see her standing tall, one nation under God, America. And such has been our purpose all week. For we are gathered in Winchester to let our freedom ring, and to do so in the presence of many humble heroes, and to do so in commemoration of the 40th anniversary of the end of the Vietnam War, and to do so in tribute to all veterans, and to do so in honor of all men and women who gave their life to let our freedom ring. Anyone who has ever served in the armed forces has stood between good and evil, between right and wrong, between order and chaos, between justice and injustice, between 240 years of liberty versus anarchy. And this week in Winchester, Indiana, we've had the opportunity to both honor you and thank you for freedom. In closing, I would like to invite Connie and Mike and Bridget to join us on stage, please. Connie, Mike, Bridget, on behalf of the thousands and thousands who have come to Winchester to let our freedom ring, we'd like to present you with this commemorative gift. It's given in honor of all that you are and all that you do. Please hang it proudly in remembrance of these past 5 days and in honor of all who have served. Ladies and gentlemen, as we conclude both this ceremony and this 5-day memorial event, would you please now stand if you're able, and silently, please join me in reflecting on these past 5 days. And in so doing, we will experience the missing man flyover, followed by the traditional firing of 3 volleys, and then taps to dismiss us all. As so doing, we then appropriately conclude today's ceremony, and we send the American Veterans Traveling Tribute to its new destination in New Madrid, Missouri. May it and you travel both in safety and in peace. Amen. This concludes our ceremony and a memorable 5 days in Winchester, Indiana. Thank you all.